Hi, it's Meg. Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be working on this built-in pocket page that I have in my no-sew journal for Junk Journal July. The prompt for today is wildlife, and the lovely Lydia over at February and June is our collaboration host for today. So the playlist link will be in the description box down below so you can follow along. So the pocket that I'm working on here, it was added in as I was adding all my other papers in, just like as normal when I was adding them all together, and I was really looking forward to getting to this page so that I could work on something for it, because I had a few ideas floating around in my head of what I might do. But I have this tag that is the perfect size for this little pocket, and I thought, what better way to use it than within this? So I'm adding some collage here to the front of it so that I've got the little stamp detail there on the back, and then something to work on for the front. So this is just a piece of scrapbook paper, and it is in this beautiful muted greenery leafy pattern, which I thought would be a great base to use for the prompt of wildlife. So within my journals, I tend to gravitate towards flowers a lot as my imagery. I don't really use birds or butterflies or anything like that. I know that they're really popular, but it's just not something that tends to crop up within my journals. So I thought this prompt of wildlife would be the perfect opportunity to push myself out of my comfort zone a little and work with some different imagery. So I've got some birds here and also some butterflies from an old book, and I thought that why not just fussy cut these instead. And I cut out a few of these at first, and I should have checked what size the tag was, because the tag is quite skinny and some of the birds overhung over the edges, and because I was putting it in the pocket on the page, it wouldn't work. So I ended up going with the third option of the birds here that I have, just because I didn't want to cut their poor little tails off or their beaks or anything like that. So I ended up opting for one that was more portrait in orientation, so that I could include it on the tag in full. And I just layered it on top of different bits of collage in a way that was adding interest, but that also kept it quite simple. So I did stick with a more neutral colour palette for this, just because I knew that the image of the bird itself was fairly detailed, so I wanted to make sure that the background was fairly plain. You can see here I was trying to make it work, and then I thought about cutting off its little tail, but it wouldn't work with the size of the journal. And then I almost thought maybe I could put the bird on the pocket instead, but see, at this point I hadn't thought about cutting off the front of the envelope and making it into a see-through pocket. So that's why I was focused on making sure that I could see the bird properly, and whether I wanted to then obviously include it on the actual page itself rather than the tag. But I was also just really drawn to the idea of having it on the tag itself, because tags are something that I think I really do like to use within my journals. I think they are a fun way to add extras in different pockets and things, but sometimes I struggle with actually using them for a purpose. Sometimes I'll add a bit of journaling on them, or a quote and things like that, but oftentimes I am more drawn to things that are flat on my journal pages and that you can just see everything all at once. Even if it's a tip in, just the fact that it's flat and you don't need to interact with it too much. So I was trying to think of a way where I could have this tag but then still be able to see what I had put on the tag, because that was going to be the focus of the page, and I didn't want to almost create this beautiful little tag and then tuck it away in the pocket and not be able to see it. So what I ended up doing was thinking about how I could make it so that I could still see the imagery on the tag. So you'll see a little bit later on, I actually took my scissors to the page and started cutting out the square on the front of this pocket, which was actually really tricky because of the fact that it was in the journal page itself. So there was a lot of like maneuvering that I had to do in order to make that work. But I think that it was a really fun way to be able to still see this sweet little bird that I'd put on the front of this tag. I debated actually whether I wanted to add any like wording onto the tag, like with my brush lettering pen, or maybe adding something with my typewriter, but I ended up just leaving it plain because I didn't want to detract too much from the focal point that I had. And you can see here, I was really struggling with trying to cut this out. Now, I should have used a craft knife, but as I was doing this, I couldn't find one. And you might be able to relate, you know, when you just have an idea in your head and you just want to do it, you don't want to spend like 10-15 minutes rummaging around your craft room trying to find whatever specific utensil you need. So I just thought I'd improvise, and I hacked away basically at that little envelope, but I cut out that rectangle on the front, and then I decided to add in some tracing paper here so that it was closed but still a little bit translucent. I did play around with some, like, you know, plastic packaging, like the thinner packaging that you get, but I didn't want the shine. You could see the image more clearly, which was a good thing, but I really didn't like the shine. So I feel like I need to play around with a way that I can use that plastic packaging but be able to have that more matte effect. Like, I don't know, has anyone ever tried adding like matte medium on top of the plastic? I'm worried that then you won't be able to see through it. But I just think that I really do prefer a more matte effect. Even with like stickers, I hate when you have shiny stickers. Like, I really prefer a matte sticker. So that's why I went with the tracing paper. And then because I had some scruffy edges, shall we say, on the way that I had cut out the opening, I decided to just add a few bits of collage and washi tape around the edges just to kind of disguise the botched job that I'd done. But it actually ended up looking like a really nice collage on the foreground of the piece, so that I had some interest on the surface of that as well. And so as I was building up that little collage on the front, just with a few different bits and pieces, I actually thought, well, maybe I could add a butterfly, so I could have a bird and a butterfly on this page. And I ended up cutting out a little butterfly just to stick on the right hand side corner, and I think that that sat really nicely with everything else that I had going on this page. So I just fussy cut it out because I feel like I fussy cut everything out. The antennas were very fiddly to do. I almost, cut one of them off and thought, well, maybe I can just have like a one antenna butterfly and who's really going to notice. But I made sure to cut around that carefully and have all the antennas intact for my butterfly. So I just cut that and stuck it in the right hand side corner, which added a really nice touch to the piece, and I think helped it to not feel so stark when I'd cut it out. So you can see I'm just sort of playing with different positionings and where I wanted it to sit, and eventually found a home for it. So I just sort of put the tag in so I could see how it was going to sit with everything else, and then glued that down. And as I was doing this, I kept looking at the tracing paper that I had on the pocket, and I got the feeling that there was something missing, and I couldn't decide, like, should I do some lettering onto it? Should I add some white pen? It just needed something, and I think it needed contrast. So you'll see in a sec how I managed to add something to it that I think helped to bring it all together. You know, when you have that piece and it's just missing something, but you're not quite sure what it is. So when I'm not sure what it needs and I don't want to make any kind of rash decisions about what I want to add to the piece, I'll end up moving away and working on another area of the piece. So you'll see here I'm just working on some collage on the left hand side here, and I wanted to do this just so that I could have a little bit of flow between the previous page and this pocket, because I'd worked on just the little pocket there and it almost felt very isolated and like it was sort of stood on its own. So I wanted to have some collage papers, like a little bit of a cluster sort of running up the side, and almost spilling a little bit into the previous page with the marks that I made, so that the whole page came together a little bit. So even though I was working on just a small area, it still felt like it was part of a bigger piece, and not that I was just working on that one little pocket part of the page. Like the fact that it was a whole page rather than just me working on a specific section of it. So adding these abstract leaf patterns just with my Neo colour here, I think really helped to pull it together by having one on the left and then also just in that top right hand corner, so that it didn't feel quite so sparse. And then that is my finished page for today. I really enjoyed working with the tag and the pocket, and I think it turned out really well with the translucency as well. So thank you for joining me as always. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and don't forget to check out the collaboration videos if you want to catch up on what everyone has been creating so far.